and welcome to Worth the War. My name is Kimmy. The purpose of Worth the War is preparing people for healthy love and relationship and how to avoid abuse. If you think we can do a better job with love and relationship than we're doing in the modern culture, then you have found the exact right place. Today, we're going to continue a discussion with Brittney Herman, and I am so excited to share with you her resources and what she's doing work in when it comes to helping people to avoid abuse and also helping people who are survivors not be rewounded by culture as they come out of it. So, Brittney, we are so glad to have you here. Would you be willing to share with us one thing that you would make sure that every child, and I know you don't have kids now, but if you choose to have children later, that you would want them to know before they go out for their very first date?
The biggest thing that I would say is just that mom is here for you sort of thing. So I think that kind of plays into both sides of the sexual assault prevention idea. So first, that I'm here, I'm more than willing to talk about anything that happened on your date. This is a judgment-free zone. I remember one time when I was a young woman, I had an experience on a date that made me very uncomfortable. And I went to my mom afterward and I was telling her about it. And it felt like a safe space, and I didn't feel judged for anything that had happened. I felt like it was just the perfect space for me to be able to share what had happened to me and what I needed to do going forward and what I needed my mom to do to help me. So mom being there for you, you can talk about anything that happened on your date, judgment-free zone. I know one mom who calls her time with kids free time, where she gives time every night with her kids and says, this is free time. There will be no unnatural consequences. So, if you've done something like stolen a cookie from the cookie jar sort of thing, then yeah, maybe she'll put the cookie jar on a higher shelf, but not grounding you and nothing like that. And I think that idea of having, I'm here for you and I'm your mom and I love you and this is how we're going to approach this conversation is the best thing. The second part of that, not just from the survivor side and if something were to happen to one of my children, but also the perpetration side. So making sure my children don't become sexual violence perpetrators. I think it's a lot about communicating with them prior to the date that, these are boundaries, but I am here for you if you want to talk through anything, if you want to ask me any questions or advice about how to approach things in the future, how to approach consent, saying, oh, I really wanted to kiss her, but I wasn't sure, mom, how do I do it on the next date sort of thing. I think just having that open dialogue is critical.
That is really important. Can you share a little bit more about this idea of making sure our kids understand what abuse looks like from both sides? What would you think? We all talk about making sure kids recognize aggressive and abusive personalities and the red flags of abuse. What do you think are the green flags of not being an abuser?
I think those green flags of you're not an abuser are first things that parents should look out for. I think of a time when I was with a young man and his parents, and he kept trying to grab my waist. And I was like, I don't want you to do that. It makes me uncomfortable. And it would have been nice for his parents to step in and be like, hey, son, you can't do that. She said it makes her uncomfortable. Don't move forward then. And I think that that's a great way to prevent an individual from becoming a sexual assault perpetrator is just watching out for your kid, perhaps showing some of these tendencies. But green flags of not being a perpetrator and how a child can know that they're safe is things like asking for consent, making sure they're not engaging in coercive behaviors, which is any sort of threat, force, or intimidation and what that looks like. And making sure that they have open communication with their partner. I think communication is key and the most important thing in all relationships, not just romantic relationships.
That's very good. I think that that's something that I would love to pursue further with you down the road. So share with us a practice that you think people could instill in their lives that would prepare them for healthier relationships.
I think, and this has kind of become a theme of this talk, but honest communication. I remember when I was in a long-term abusive relationship, I had some degree of communication with the man that I was with, but it wasn't honest. I wasn't telling him the things that made me uncomfortable. He wasn't receiving my communication well. And in a relationship where two people aren't communicating well, there's going to be some issues, of course, but those were major issues because he wasn't communicating. And I think that that should have been a big red flag for me. And of course, I was young at the time. And so the second part of this was honest communication with my family and with my parents. So I was in this relationship. My parents thought that he was fantastic because they only saw the side when they were around, which of course is going to be his best self. It's not going to be the side that's belittling me or making me feel horrible or guilting me for things that aren't my fault. And I wish that I hadn't tried to protect him in that relationship, because my mom would ask how things were, and I never gave any sort of complaint. I never told her about the things going on. He had cheated on me more than once, and I decided to keep that from my parents because I was like, well, if I marry him, I don't want these things to come up. And those are indications of a trauma bond rather than love, but I thought I was doing it out of love. And it's something that I think it's so unfortunate. So many young women, especially, I mean, young men as well, though, they are in these relationships and they just feel that, oh, it's love and I love them and I want to spend my life with them and they're great to me and things like that. But they don't realize, because of their inexperience, they don't realize because of, maybe their young puppy love infatuation sort of idea that what's happening to them is wrong. And if I'd communicated with my mother, like, oh, you know what, he makes me feel horrible when I leave the cabinet doors open. I'm surprised I don't have any open right now. I always keep them open. He like makes me feel like I'm a horrible person. He tells me that I'm not going to make a good wife and that I will, that I'm messy and that I basically ruin his life, essentially. Like, if I told her some of these instances, and that's just one example, then my mom could have stepped in and kind of helped me recognize that it was a problematic relationship and that I was enduring emotional abuse.
That is so very important, because you really, when it comes to the things that we want, one of the things we want is this tight, great relationship. So we're going to put a lot of things to the side to maintain that kind of a confirmation bias that this is great, this is great. And if we don't invite someone in, an accountability person that we trust, we are setting ourselves up. What a fantastic insight that gives us. Is not only is it important to be communicative, but it's to have that safe place, that person that's a vault that we can actually share. Is this really okay? You see the social media stuff. If you're asking yourself if it's healthy, it's probably not. And you kind of think maybe that's pessimistic, but yeah, maybe that's kind of dead on. Is a really healthy relationship might have a few bumps, but it's not going to make you question the foundation of the relationship. And so if you have someone that you trust, and so before we start to go down that road of abuse, if we have some accountability that we say, if I tell you this, I know you're not going to hold it against them later, then I think we're going to have a good protection, a good built-in protection. And that's really good advice. I mean, both of those are really good advice. So I really can't tell you how much I appreciate the time that you've taken to be here and just really worked toward giving us great resources. Are there some other resources that you'd like to share with us that you are putting together or that you have that you'd want our people to know?
Absolutely. So We Will has a research-based sexual assault prevention curriculum that is aimed at preventing individuals from becoming sexual violence perpetrators, as well as helping individuals who have endured sexual violence or will in their lifetime know the resources available. And so that curriculum is free to all parents. It's meant to be used in the home. It can also be introduced to schools, but primarily we want these lessons to begin at home. And then additionally, on We Will's website, we do have a survivor resources portal, and this portal features a variety of resources, including lawyers that are sympathetic to survivors of sexual assault, different resource centers, different crisis centers, as well as tools for parents and other individuals for when a survivor approaches them to speak to them about their sexual assault, they know better how to respond and how to help the survivor in the best possible way.
That is so exciting. I'm so excited to see where this movement goes. I'm so excited to follow you. I hope that you'll all join down below on her Instagram and some of the great offerings that she has. It's going to be really neat to see that we have someone in this space willing to step up and say, not only do we want to make sure that we help lift the people and help them land well after they've endured abuse, but that we are going to work really hard to make sure that these things aren't going to happen to you or your children. So Brittney, it means so much that you took the time to share with us. I look forward to just staying in touch with you and learning more from you in the future. You're an absolute doll.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You have a great rest of your day.
You too.